Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Charles L. Blockson Afro-American Collection. My name is Diane Turner. I am the curator. And, whoa. And it is my pleasure and honor to bring forth Dr. Molefi Asante. He has been a great supporter of the Blockson collection. We were honored to be able to exhibit his 100 books, but now he has, I think, 102, Dr. Asante?
Something like that.
Something like that, yeah. But he has been on the forefront of making sure that our stories are told accurately. And I could go on and on. I want to acknowledge his other half, Anna, who's here.
Thank you.
And there's others here, but I don't want to take up too much time. So I'm going to bring up Dr. Asante, who's going to talk about his latest book. And as always, Dr. Asante, thank you.
Thank you very much.
For being available and accessible. All right.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I want to thank Dr. Diane Turner. Actually, she is, in her own right, one of the great leaders, historical leaders of our community, and the work that she has done in continuing the incredible, phenomenal work of Charles Blockson is magnificent. And her name is already written in the history books. We're really delighted and really honored to be here. Thank you all for coming to this program. And I just want to announce that I don't know how much this book costs, but I do understand that there are copies available, and I will be very willing to sign them for you. The Blockson has purchased copies for you to purchase. I don't know, I don't do this very well. I have not done this often, and but I was very honored and happy to be able to do it today. And I wanted to, because part of my struggle was, where do I begin? How do you start this process? And let me start by telling you the name of the book is Africa's Gifts of the Spirit. That's the name of the book, Africa's Gifts of the Spirit. Where did this idea come from? To be honest with you, this idea came a very long time ago, and it came from the time I was a child. I didn't know I would write this book, but I knew that the question of spirituality and the question of just the wonder of the universe was very close to me. Growing up in South Georgia, being from a peasant family, there were 16 of us, working in the harvest for tobacco and in the cotton fields, the hot sand of the cotton fields. I knew there was something out there, something different, something that had to be considered that I did not know. And it didn't mean that I grew up in a church, in a church community. There was a church, and our family had been in a church probably from the 1870s, when Mount Olivet Baptist Church was established in Dooley County, Georgia. But in Valdosta, where I grew up, my grandfather had moved the family into a church called the Churches of Christ. So we went to that church. But I was always a questioner. And as a little child, I remember asking the preacher so many questions, and I may have been 12 or 13, that he finally said to me, young man, you just have to have faith. And, you don't ask me all these questions. You're just questioning everything. Why are you asking me why this and why that and what this and so on? So I guess the quest for me was spiritual. It's always been that way. And when you travel, you also see things and you learn things, because that's the beautiful thing about travel. You go to different places and you meet different people and you talk to different people, and there are different things that come up, and you see things. And so it's a really wonderful experience. So that's what happened to me. The book was supposed to be called Inyanga's Gifts of the Spirit. Inyanga, N-Y-A-N-G-A. Inyanga's Gifts of the Spirit. But as I talk to people, people would say to me, "But what is Inyanga?" You know. So Africa's Gifts of the Spirit became the title of the book. But the book is about the wisdom and the ancestral intelligence, the AI, the ancestral intelligence of Inyanga. And Inyanga is a name that is quite common throughout Africa. Almost in every section of the continent, every region of the continent, there's something that has anga in it. That's a very, very classical part. Whether it is Ilanga or Ilanga, Nyanga, this is very, very common. And most of the time, it means one who is a seeker, or one who can give you insight into wisdom. And so that's the Nyanga. I mean, is a person who can give you that information. So the way this book starts off is biographical. And 3 or 4 pages it's biographical, gives you some background, some information about myself and my family in a general way. And then the book has 5 sections that are significant here. Actually, it has a discussion of awe, A-W-E, the word awe. A discussion of the word creativity, and the word virtue, and the word sebayet, and then immortality. Those are the 5 key areas: awe, creativity, virtue, sebayet, immortality. These were the constructs that occurred to me that Inyanga could talk about on the basis of what Inyanga had come to see and know. And so I pose this in a narrative, in a short narrative, a very small narrative, and it is about a young woman coming to me asking me for information. And then I tell this young woman what Inyanga had said to me, basically about awe, about creativity, about immortality, and so forth, in the different places that I have traveled. So that is the way this book is structured. I'm just going to read some sections for you and talk about them, and then we'll go from there. A few days ago, a young woman, not more than 20, made her way to my house on the edge of a sugarcane field in South Georgia. I have retired from active teaching for more than 20 years, yet visitors come to me with grievances, dilemmas, conundrums, and for consultations. And of course, now I teach them what I know, drawing upon the experiences and the words that Inyanga gives me. The young woman had called me the day before and had now come early in the morning to my house, and since I normally get up around 5 a.m., I had already made my meditations to Ra. I met her in the early morning summer fog. I saw that her face, round and full, was contorted with distress. Her eyes were red, and she seemed jittery, perhaps nervous. I offered her tea and invited her to my sitting room. She sat on the corduroy sitting chair while I got the tea. I could hear her sobbing, as I prepared the tea for both of us. "Okay, please tell me, why have you come to see me?" I asked. Sitting on my old, worn, red woolen sofa, I did not expect the torrent of pain that would rush forth from her small, frail body. But here is what she told me. My parents abandoned me when I was 10 years old and moved to California. I was left with my father's parents. They were already raising 2 older children from my father's sister, who was in prison for selling cocaine. My aunt's children treated me with disdain because they did not like the clothes I wore, nor did they like the fact that I spoke with an accent. They said that my parents had run off to California because they could not stand me. I was hurt. I am still hurt. Sometimes I cannot focus on my tasks in college. I am often angry with everyone because I cannot get control of my emotions. She paused, and I jumped in with another question. What emotion most cripples you in your daily life? Eagerly, like a child reaching for the cookies in her mother's jar, she answered me quickly. I am surrounded by fear. Nothing brings me joy. Despair envelops every day like the fog outside your house. She waved her left hand toward the window. I feel like enemies are surrounding me and begging me to fight. But I'm unable to respond, helpless and crying like a broken dog, limp back to my own shell of a person and remain quiet until the hurricane of doubt leaves my head. I had experienced my own despair in the past, like the distress she expressed. But where I had found clarity, she was still obviously in the midst of a crisis that would take the ancient wisdom of Nyanga to sort out for her. Sitting with me until the sun obliterated the fog, she commented on my gray hair, telling me that the follicles were dancing in the breaking clouds of fog like tiny electric flags hollowed by sparks of sunlight. This comment made me look at her more carefully in the sunlight. She was a beautiful woman, skin as smooth as the eucalyptus and her face serious but reserved. She sat on her elegant head like the image of Nefertari I had seen in the tombs of Egypt. My head is not older than the head of Nyanga, I said to her in response to her comment. Momentarily, she seemed confused, and I could see her asking without saying, "Who is Nyanga?" I hurried to answer, "Nyanga is before the March on Washington, before the Harlem Renaissance, before the Emancipation Proclamation, before 1619. Nyanga is before time as we know it." Now the sun was very hot, and I took her outside toward the hillock beyond my yard, nearer the sugarcane. We climbed on the top and surveyed the land. I told her to stand where I stood. She seemed annoyed, but in a minute's time she pushed forward and up the path until she stood where I stood, and she could see some of what I could see from that place. She could not see all because her eyes had not seen as many years as mine, but she had seen enough in her lifetime to have a desire to know, but a reluctance to push. And then she told me a short story. A few days ago, I traveled to see my childhood friend, a young man whom I had liked very much and hoped to marry one day. When I arrived at his home, I saw multicolored stones stacked in a neat pyramid near the beginning of a small stream. Because although I lived in the city, he was a country boy who loved the smell of flowers. And when they were covered with morning dew, I did not know that I would soon see the stream, the pebbles in the water, and the pyramid of stones as a memorial garden. But his parents met me and told me at the entrance to their house that he had accidentally fallen off the roof of a barn that he and friends were painting. I stood with them, mother, father, and me, immobilized, sobbing, as I have been with you this morning. They embraced me And we shared a few stories. And I wish that I had come before his death. But life throws many curveballs. And before I left, I paused and meditated alone on the meaning of life. It was as if a huge boulder had landed on me with the weight of all the fear and abandonment I have felt over the years. And now my friend, who was my possibility, is gone. And I am crushed to the ground, stunned, weeping, screaming in shock, holding on to any tree of strength. And so, old man, I have come to you. I told her that she would spend some days and nights in the throes of dystopian thoughts about the future. The darkness in her mind would be nauseating from day to day, yet I had words for her when she would be ready to receive them. I told her that she would not forget, nor should she forget the harm done to her when she was a child, but that she must not allow it to define her. She nodded robotically in agreement, but I was not through with my instructions. I told her that death was part of life and that the two went together to every corner of the earth and would visit all of us one day. In a weak, almost inaudible voice, she allowed, I know. This was the moment I was looking for in our encounter. Knowledge is spiritual when we obtain it purely. I told her that the memory of her friend who died would be painted in her imagination forever, and that the memories would return like perennials in gardens each year. And as I walked her to the little car she had driven to my house, I said to her, look yonder, toward the line of trees on the other side of the fields. Over there is where the ghosts of the ancestors wander in the dark until the daylight comes. And then they enter us and inspire every known art and skill. She asked, will I be all right? I said to her, if you pick up a stick, remember that it comes with both ends. I knew then that she was ready for what Inyanga had taught me. And so I told her to listen to the innermost parts of her being, and she would understand everything Inyanga says. Who is Inyanga? She asked. I told her that I was only the conduit, the one who would turn on the faucet, but that the words were from the ancient ones long before me. I had no problem sharing with her what Inyanga had told me, and so she listened for hours before driving away. And here is what Inyanga said. And so that is the sort of prologue, and then I get into what Inyanga said to me to say to her. You see, that is the way it's structured. And the first one is facing all, because when I talk about spirituality for me, awe is one of the great things that seems to occur. And we can see this everywhere, I mean, and all the time. Inyanga, never one to shout, spoke softly as I hurried to my office. One day, the monkey, imitating others, cut his own throat. I stopped dead in my tracks in the middle of the sidewalk at 5th and 42nd and vowed to myself to watch the flowers grow in the park before I did anything else. Rushing up the street, passing others like me, too occupied to stop to think, I reached the unattended entrance to Central Park and found peace enough to think. From the earliest of times, humans have caught some hint of the spiritual in ordinary life and natural phenomena. Here I was under the same spell as the ancients who knew this way of the gardens and quiet trails in the bush. I know that I have cried with joy when I have watched a mother run through a fierce rain and thunderstorm to save her child. And just as she scooped the child from the front yard of her house, the wind gusts took her house. Only in authentic ordinariness, without arrogance or hubris, can I find originality, which waits patiently until I find myself. This is what Inyanga said, you see. Inyanga captured my attention at Musiwatunya. This is the smoke that thunders. This is what Livingstone called Victoria Falls. On the borders of three nations, Zimbabwe, South Africa, and Zambia, while I was being drenched by the mighty tropical mist, and with a sound louder than the thunderous roar of the waterfalls, said, appearances never compare with actual quietude. What was the meaning of these pounding words in my ears? Had Livingstone been able to hear the music of this wondrous water? Here is where Inyanga elevated my quest for quiet. Here, in the midst of so much water and sound, I discovered that quiet could be felt anywhere, and that it did not matter if I were alone or in the midst of 100 dances, so long as I showed respect to the ancestors and nature. What was revealed to me had been hinted at in the silence of moonless nights and in the spaces of nothingness, in the stormy rainy season, and the interstices of sandstorm brown outs. That quietness itself is wisdom. Those who talk too much do not hear anything and show only their arrogance in the face of elders. So you can see that this is how it goes, and I would just say that it is situated in different places. I situated in Cape Town, for example. I situated standing on the top of a roof. I'll read this short one. Inyanga spoke to me as I stood on the top of a hotel's roof in Istanbul, and looked along at the Blue Mosque and Hagia Sophia in the early amber daylight's reflection from the Bosphorus, wondering about the incredible imagination that must have gone into the construction of those two monuments to human capability. Neither was I alone, nor were those marbled structures set apart from the many temples in stone and wood that I have seen elsewhere in the world. A congregation of the seen and the unseen gathered near the strait between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean, and I only knew it because I remembered hearing the voice of Inyanga saying that it was in silence that everything comes to us. No secrets escape silence. So here, again, Inyanga is that voice that comes, and I am the conduit for it. Whether I am in Cape Town, whether I'm visiting my great-grandmother's home place, whether I'm at Khufu's pyramid, whether I am in Ushuaia in Argentina, which is the southernmost city perhaps in the world. And so you go to these spaces, and what you see, and this is the imagination, this is the power of the imagination. You see and you hear and you discover that in ordinary things, that is the secret to spirituality. But you also find it in creativity. And I always say that creativity, we always say that God is a creator. People say God created the heavens and the earth, or whether it's Allah or Jehovah, whatever, name of the Almighty Amen. But the notion of creation is itself divine. That is the essence of divinity. This is why we say that the creator, those who create, those who make, those who fabricate things, those who are able to put things together and make new things, that is divinity. That's the essence of spirituality. It is not spookism. It's not something weird. That is your divinity. You write, you create books, you create poems, you create paintings, you create dances, you make things. That is God in you. That's the key to it, you see? And Younger understood this. My curiosity about mystery, and one can call it what one wants to. The divine, for instance, is answered in every society by rituals to empower humans to accept the inexplicable gift. There are several human groups who have rarely seen outsiders, yet I am fairly certain that the Coruba of Brazil, the Sentinelese of the Andaman Islands, the Maceo Piro of Peru, the Pintupi of Australia, and the Rua of Vietnam, the humans most untouched by our reality, have within their societies rituals of birth and death, touching also the edge of mystery. So this is that creativity to me is central. And I just have a couple, maybe three more, and then I will try to bring this to an end. And Younger spoke to me loudly while I was visiting the rehabilitation residence. To arrive at creation as when a child is born or when we are done cleaning our streets, picking up litter, saving the trees, sharing our boat in floods, taking in orphans, and taking care of the weak, is really to be on the path toward a greater sense of relationship. I knew that what we claimed to be ordinary was simply the divine not named, claimed, or declared. If every morning I walked to the stream to bring water to my family, and on my journey I see the same beautiful bird until one day I do not see the bird, I may name the path that I have taken the sacred path of the beautiful bird. I do not know what happened to the bird. It may have died, or it may have followed its own babies, or it might have been killed by some hunter. But for me and my ordinary routine of walking to the stream and seeing the bird, I cannot think of anything more memorable than seeing the bird every time I walk the path. It is truly the path of the beautiful bird. How is this knowledge memorialized? Kept for the next walker of the path and served up as a narrative of beauty except through ritual. As we shall see, ritual assists us to know when we were not the ones who saw or experienced the creative moment. What the first creator names or declares becomes the recognition of Ma'at for those who follow. You see? So this is creativity. This is about, I mean, you can apply it to everything, even religion. It's the same. The ones who first came saw it, and they had the thing, and then they pass it on to us, and we just do a routine to keep it reinforced. You keep on saying, this is the path of the beautiful bird, but the bird is no more. It's gone. And the person who saw it at the first is not there anymore, you see. So, okay, I think we're near the end of this. Let me see, let me get to the end here. Okay. Inyanga seemed to emerge out of the water near Salvador Bahia, after flowers thrown to Yamanya had washed out to sea, and said, "The universe is its own law, and when people are oppressed, they will soon fight back and win, or fight back and die. But they will fight back. It is the law of the universe." I then understood that the universe and history were infinite storytellers. There was a lot of lessons to learn, but if you do not learn them, You are bound to repeat the mistakes of those who have shown the same disregard as you. Making beauty out of nothing, those who are oppressed find ways to express the most beautiful of graces. I sought out my student from Bangladesh and asked him, Abu, what is it that the poor children who have crossed the border from Myanmar seek? He did not know that I was pursuing the path opened to me by Nyanga, but he answered, they seek justice, to be restored to the dignity they left behind when they left the ashes and bones of their own country. They vowed that they will fight to win their reparations. And so the final reading. A friend of mine went to a cooperative and was asked by a middle-aged woman, what church did she belong? She said without hesitation, the Church of the Guard. The woman was puzzled and quickly asked, where is that? Everywhere, Nova said, echoing the words of her siblings, Akila, Akira, and Ion, as they ran down to the stream in their own garden. Nyanga heard everything, but did not speak at that moment. Soon Nova became very busy with children in the neighborhood, teaching, feeding, caring, and protecting them. When people saw her coming down the road, they would all say, and how are the children? She made books for them to read and brought fabric from her own home so they could touch the different textures and speak about them. The children smiled and said, you are a great teacher. Nova had blushed a little, her cashew-colored skin turning slightly pink at the cheeks, but she managed a beautiful thank you. The students replied, you have left us petals from your flower garden, and we are very happy. They applauded. Nyanga smiled, and then she spoke to Nova. If you could go to the moon, your spirituality would not change, would it? Everywhere in the universe, you would be the same, correct? That, my daughter, is the gift of Nyanga to you. Nyanga continued, there are no shortcuts to the top of the coconut palm. That is the Nyanga. When a brush falls into the well, only a few are willing to go get it. That is the Nyanga. So Nyanga said more to Nova. The ancestors knew that you were the one to climb the tree, to fetch the brush, and to give petals of flowers to others. Now consider all that you are doing, a fulfillment of your destiny, and you will gain wisdom that will not melt like water in the sand. To receive Nyanga's gifts of the Spirit, that is rediscovered in every crisis, we must be ready to be chosen. Are you ready? Is your brother ready? Or your sisters ready to receive the gifts? Yes, we are ready, Nova answered. And the ancient woman, Nyanga, whose voice carried them and us, disappeared, and the children, like all of us, had to live on what she had taught. Ashe. Okay. Thank you. So that's the essence of this small book that was actually published by Third World Press, and I want to give my friend Haki Madibudi real gratitude and thanks for making sure that it is published and it's available to the public. It is on Third World site as well as on Amazon, and we have copies here, and I have agreed to sign copies for those of you who purchase it.